The night sky loomed above them, vast and merciless. The group moved in silence, their torches slicing through the alien mist as they descended into the jagged crevice that led to the underground facility. Ryan walked point, rifle raised, his jaw clenched tight. Zara followed close, blade strapped to her thigh, her eyes darting like a predator's. Behind them, Maya stumbled, exhaustion in every step, her breath fogging in the cold air. Ethan trailed last, his broad shoulders carrying more than just his pack. He carried the weight of unspoken responsibility. The heavy doors loomed before them, a fusion of steel and something else, alien alloys woven like veins through metal. The moment Ryan laid a hand on the cold surface, he knew they weren't supposed to find this. With a groan, the doors split open. The stale breath of the facility rolled out to meet them, thick with the scent of rust, oil, and something rotten. Ryan, narration. We thought we'd seen the worst this planet had to offer. The storms, the hunger, the monsters. But what we found that night, it wasn't alien, it was us. And that was so much worse. The facility stretched endlessly, a labyrinth of metal walkways fused with organic alien architecture. The walls pulsed faintly as if alive. Tubes ran like arteries overhead, filled with a sluggish, glowing liquid. Maya's hand brushed over a control panel, and to her horror, it lit up under her touch. Human words blinked on the screen. Access granted, Maya whispered, voice trembling. This isn't alien. Humans built this. Ryan's stomach sank. He turned, and what he saw nearly broke him. Rows upon rows of transparent chambers lined the walls. Inside them, twisted remains of human beings. Some were deformed beyond recognition, their bones bent, their flesh fused with metal. Others were frozen mid-scream, their hands clawing against glass that had never broken. Zara's hand shot to her mouth, stifling the urge to vomit. No, Joe, this isn't real. Ethan pressed close to one chamber, his torchlight falling on a skeletal figure with alien tendrils sprouting from its ribs. The face still bore a human jawline. God help us, he muttered. Ryan clenched his fists until his knuckles bled. They used us. Like lab rats, Maya, her voice cracking. This planet, it's not random. It's a proving ground. They've been sending people here for years, maybe decades, and studying who lives, who dies. The words sank into them like poison. For the first time since arriving, the group didn't just feel fear, they felt grief. A metallic screech ripped through the silence. Then another. The floor trembled. From the vents above spilled nightmares, creatures no bigger than a man's torso, spider-like but fused with metal plating. Glowing eyes burning in the dark. Dozens, then hundreds. Ryan, move! Move! Gunfire erupted. Sparks danced in the dim corridors as Ryan cut down the first wave. Zara slashed with her blade, tearing one creature in half, ichor spraying her face. Maya screamed as one leapt at her, its claws grazing her arm. Ethan tackled it mid-air, slamming it into the wall with a sickening crunch. They ran. The facility became a blur of flickering lights, steel catwalks, and hissing shadows. The swarm poured after them, shrieking, clawing, their metallic limbs scraping the walls like nails on bone. The stairwell appeared ahead, a crumbling spiral of rusted steel leading upward. Their way out. But it was narrow, jagged, half-collapsed. Ryan, go! Climb! Maya scrambled upward, Zara close behind. But the swarm was faster, skittering up the walls, closing in. Ethan stopped, reloaded. His movements were too calm, too steady. Ryan turned, desperation in his eyes. What the hell are you doing? Come on! Ethan shook his head. His voice was firm, unshaken. Not all of us make it out. Not this time. Ryan lunged, grabbing his arm. Don't you dare! Don't you damn dare! Ethan shoved him back, slamming the butt of his rifle into Ryan's chest. His eyes softened for just a second. Take care of them. Take care of her. He nodded toward Zara. Zara froze halfway up the stairs, horror dawning across her face. Ethan! But Ethan was already turning, already firing. Bullets ripped through the swarm. Creatures exploded into black ichor. But more came, pouring over him like a living tide. The last thing Ryan saw before Zara dragged him upward was Ethan, standing tall, a wall of fire and fury against the horde. Then he was gone, consumed by the swarm. They burst out onto the surface, collapsing under the alien sky. Their lungs burned, their bodies shook. But the silence that followed was worse than the swarm. Zara snapped. She shoved Ryan hard, rage boiling in her eyes. "You let him die. You were supposed to protect us." Ryan didn't fight back. His voice was hollow. "He chose." Zara's fists shook. "He trusted you." Maya broke then, falling to her knees, tears streaking her dirt-stained face. "We can't do this anymore. Every time we fight, every time we breathe, someone dies. How many more, Ryan? How many more before it's us?" Ryan's jaw trembled, but no tears came. He stared at the sky, his voice raw with rage. "They made this place to break us, to see how much we can take before we snap. But they're about to find out. We don't break." The fire crackled weakly between them, but no warmth reached their hearts. Only grief. Only rage. Deep below, in the bowels of the facility, machines whirred to life again. Sparks lit the darkness. Ethan's broken body was dragged across the floor by mechanical arms, his chest faintly rising and falling. His eyes fluttered, trapped between life and death. A voice echoed through the chamber, chilling, controlled, undeniably human. "Subject terminated. Proceed to phase 2. How many more have to die before we find the truth?" The air inside the facility was colder than the surface, sharp enough to bite their lungs, yet each of them kept moving. Boots echoing in the long metal corridors. Ryan's mind churned with questions he couldn't answer. Why were there human systems here? Why did the panels respond to Maya's touch? Why the chambers of twisted bodies? Every step deeper felt like walking into a graveyard that belonged to them, not to some alien race. Zara's knife stayed in her hand, knuckles white around the hilt. Her eyes never stopped scanning, every flicker of light or twitch of shadow setting her teeth on edge. "This place," she muttered under her breath. "It's wrong. It feels alive." Ethan gave a small grunt, adjusting the rifle strapped across his chest. His silence was heavier than his weapon, but Ryan knew what was brewing behind it. Ethan had always carried himself like a shield, the kind of man who put himself between danger and everyone else. Tonight, though, Ryan could see the strain. There was something in Ethan's eyes that told Ryan he'd already made a decision. The hum of machinery deepened as they passed another row of chambers. A face stared out at them through cracked glass, half skull, half human. Ryan forced himself not to look too long, but Maya stopped. Her hand lifted, trembling as it hovered near the glass. "They weren't just testing survival," she whispered. "They were changing us, experimenting, trying to make something new." Ryan's hand clamped down on her shoulder, dragging her forward. "Don't stop. Don't even look at them." His voice was hard, but underneath it was fear. Fear that if he let her stare too long, she'd break apart right there in front of them. The screech came again, closer, louder. Ryan spun, gun ready, just in time to see movement ripple across the ceiling. Metallic limbs, too many of them. A dozen glowing eyes reflected in the torchlight. "Run," Ethan growled. The swarm dropped like rain, chaos erupted. Gunfire roared through the corridor, ricocheting off steel walls. Zara's blade slashed in a blur, ichor splattering across her face. One of the creatures leapt for Maya, claws outstretched, and she screamed. Ethan was already there, crushing it against the wall in a spray of sparks and black liquid. They moved together, backs pressed, fighting their way down the hall. Ryan fired until his rifle clicked empty, then rammed the stock into another creature's jaw, snapping it sideways. The floor beneath them rattled, the walls vibrating like a living heartbeat. More were coming. Ahead, Ryan saw the stairwell, narrow, rusted, their only way out. "Go, climb!" he shouted, shoving Maya toward it. Maya stumbled up the first steps, Zara right behind her, slashing at anything that came close. Ryan fired into the horde, buying them seconds. Then he saw Ethan stop. His rifle lifted, but his eyes weren't on the swarm. They were on Ryan. "No," Ryan said, shaking his head, voice breaking. "Don't do it." Ethan stepped back, planting his feet. He reloaded, his movement slow, deliberate, like he'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "You know what has to happen." "Bullshit. We can all make it." Ryan's chest heaved, desperation clawing at his throat. Ethan's eyes softened just for a second. "Take care of them. Take care of her." His gaze flicked up the stairwell to Zara. She'd stopped halfway, watching with wide, horrified eyes. "Ethan, don't you dare!" Zara screamed, her voice breaking. But Ethan was already firing. Round after round tore into the swarm, blasting creatures apart in sprays of metal and gore. He roared with each shot, forcing them back, holding them, drowning in the chaos. Ryan lunged toward him, but Ethan shoved him back with the butt of his rifle, slamming the air out of his lungs. "Go!" he bellowed. The last thing Ryan saw before Zara grabbed him, dragging him up the stairs, was Ethan standing tall in the flood of monsters, his silhouette swallowed by a tide of claws and teeth. Gunfire thundered until it was swallowed by the screeches. Then silence. They burst onto the surface, lungs burning, eyes blinded by the alien night. They collapsed onto the jagged ground, but the silence that followed wasn't peace, it was emptiness. Ryan lay staring at the stars, his chest heaving, his mind refusing to process what had just happened. Zara's scream broke the night. She spun on him, shoving him hard, her fists pounding against his chest. "You let him die. You could have stopped him." Ryan didn't fight back. He couldn't. His voice was hoarse, broken. He chose. "Don't you say that." Zara's fists trembled, rage and grief tearing her apart. "He trusted you." Maya dropped to her knees, sobs racking her body. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered. "Every step we take, someone dies. How many more before it's us?" Ryan's jaw clenched. He looked at the sky, at the stars that mocked them with their cold indifference. His voice was raw, a growl torn from the depths of him. "They built this place to break us, to see how much pain we can take before we give in. But they don't understand something. We don't break." The fire they lit later was small, crackling weakly against the chill, but no warmth reached them. Not with Ethan gone, not with his last words burning in their minds. And deep below, in the shadows of the facility, machines stirred. Sparks lit the darkness. Ethan's broken body was dragged across the floor by mechanical arms, his chest faintly rising and falling. His eyes fluttered, trapped between life and death. A voice echoed in the chamber, cold and human. "Subject terminated. Proceed to phase 2. The hum grew louder. Somewhere above, the group shivered without knowing why. The fire burned low, throwing long shadows across the jagged rocks. Ryan sat closest, elbows on his knees, staring at the flames as if answers might rise from them. His hands were raw, streaked with dirt and blood, but he couldn't feel them. He felt nothing at all, except the weight of Ethan's absence. Zara paced like a caged animal, blade still in her grip. Her boots crunched against the stone, her eyes burning holes into Ryan's back. Every few steps she'd stop, open her mouth as if to speak, then clench her jaw and keep pacing. She couldn't bring herself to sit down. She couldn't sit still, not when rage was the only thing keeping her upright. Finally, the words tore out of her. "You could have dragged him out. You didn't even try." Her voice cracked, brittle and sharp. Ryan didn't lift his eyes from the fire. "You think I didn't want to? You think I didn't?" His throat closed. He swallowed hard, forcing the words through. He made his choice. "Choice?" Zara snapped, stepping closer, her shadow falling across him. "That wasn't a choice. That was suicide. And you let him." Ryan's jaw tightened, but still he didn't look at her. He couldn't. If he saw her face, if he saw the grief in her eyes, he'd break. If he hadn't stayed behind, none of us would be here right now. "You know that." Zara's hand twitched on her blade. For one furious heartbeat, Ryan thought she might actually strike him. Instead, she turned sharply away, her shoulders shaking. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He saved me, and I couldn't save him." Maya's sobs filled the silence. She was curled up near the fire, knees to her chest, her face buried against her arms. She hadn't stopped crying since they'd reached the surface. Each sound was raw, jagged, cutting deeper into Ryan than any blade could. He moved toward her, hesitant, like approaching something fragile. "Maya." She lifted her head, eyes red and swollen. "I don't want to hear it. Don't tell me it'll be okay. Don't tell me this is part of the plan, because it's not. It's just death after death, and we're next." Her voice cracked and the last words came out as a whisper. "We're next." Ryan's chest ached. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that they'd find a way home, that they'd survive this nightmare. But the words caught in his throat because deep down, he wasn't sure anymore. Instead, he reached out, gently resting his hand on her shoulder. She flinched at first, then sagged against him, her sobs muffled in his shirt. Ryan held her, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. Zara stopped pacing, her gaze on them. For a moment, she looked ready to lash out again, but something in her expression softened. She turned away, staring at the stars instead. The night was silent, too silent. The kind of silence that pressed in from all sides, suffocating. Ryan's mind kept replaying Ethan's final stand, the muzzle flashes lighting up the swarm, his voice booming through the chaos, the look in his eyes before he turned back to the fight. He thought of Ethan's words, "Take care of them." Ryan tightened his arms around Maya. He had failed Ethan once. He would not fail him again, but beneath that vow a darker thought stirred. Deep in his gut he knew Ethan wasn't gone. Not completely. Something about the way the facility had stirred to life, the way the machines had activated. It gnawed at him. Zara's voice cut through the silence, low and raw. "How many more, Ryan?" He finally looked at her. Her eyes glistened in the firelight, not just with anger, but with pain she couldn't hide. "How many more have to die before we find the truth?" she whispered. Ryan didn't answer, because he didn't know. And in the depths below, Ethan's eyes fluttered open for just a moment, glassy and unfocused. The machines around him whirred louder. His chest rose, shallow and mechanical, as the voice spoke again, calm, deliberate, human. Phase 2 initiated. The sky was beginning to pale, the faintest trace of dawn creeping across the jagged horizon. But for the survivors, there was no comfort in the light. Ryan hadn't slept. He sat apart from the fire, his back against a rock, eyes scanning the wasteland like a soldier on watch. Every sound, the crack of cooling stone, the sigh of wind through the cliffs, put his nerves on edge. He couldn't shake the image of Ethan, swallowed by the swarm. He couldn't shake the guilt. Zara crouched by the fire, sharpening her blade with steady, almost obsessive strokes. Sparks hissed each time metal kissed stone. Her jaw was set tight, her movements mechanical. She hadn't spoken to Ryan since the argument. Her anger wasn't gone, but it had cooled into something quieter, heavier, like molten iron settling into a blade. Maya, however, hadn't moved from where she lay, curled beneath the tattered remains of her jacket. Her face was pale, hollowed by exhaustion and grief. When her eyes opened, they weren't the eyes of the scientist who'd once been so eager to unravel mysteries. They were the eyes of someone haunted. "Water's low," Ryan said finally, his voice flat. "We need to move. The facility might have supplies we missed." Zara didn't look up from her blade. "Or more nightmares." Ryan's jaw clenched. He wanted to argue, but Maya stirred, cutting through the tension. Her voice was hoarse but urgent. "Nightmares or not, I need to go back." Both Ryan and Zara turned to her. Maya struggled to sit up, her hands trembling. "When I saw those chambers, when I saw the failed experiments, I recognized the tech. Not all of it was alien." Her voice cracked, but she pressed on. The energy signatures, the architecture, it was human. Advanced but human. Zara's brow furrowed. "What are you saying?" Maya met her eyes, desperation and certainty burning through the grief. "That facility wasn't just alien. It was built by us, or by someone like us." Ryan leaned forward. "Maya, that's impossible. We don't have technology like this. Portals, alien hybrids, Then how do you explain the portal we fell through?" she snapped, her voice trembling with frustration. "How do you explain the fact that everything here feels designed? We didn't just stumble into an alien world. We were sent here." The words hung in the air like a blade poised to strike. Zara stopped sharpening her weapon, her gaze hardening. "You're saying someone back home did this? That they used us as test subjects?" Maya nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "That's what Ethan died for. Not an accident. A project. A proving ground." Ryan felt the ground tilt beneath him. He thought of Ethan's sacrifice, of the countless dangers they'd faced since stepping through that portal. The hunger, the fear, the endless trials, it all clicked together in a way that made his stomach churn. "This isn't survival," Maya whispered. "It's an experiment." For the first time since Ethan's death, silence stretched between them without anger, without accusation. Only horror. Zara sheathed her blade with a snap and stood. "Then we find whoever's running this, and we tear them apart." Ryan rose too, his face a mask of grim resolve. "First we survive, then we get answers." Maya wiped her eyes and stood shakily, her voice breaking but determined. "Ethan didn't die so we could fall apart. He died so we could finish this." They started moving as the sun rose, their figures small against the vast, hostile landscape. Behind them, the wind stirred through the abandoned cliffs, carrying the faintest echo of machinery still humming deep below. And in the shadows of the underground facility, Ethan's body twitched on the slab. The machines around him pulsed with new energy, lights crawling across his veins. His chest rose, unnatural, mechanical. A calm voice whispered through the chamber. Subject stabilized. Sacrifice protocol complete. His eyes opened, clouded but alive.